In this week's Torah portion, we're still speaking about sacrifices, karbonos. It's very difficult for us to relate to that. It's tough for us to imagine heading to the Holy Temple, carrying or leading along an animal and then giving it to the priest so that he could sacrifice it for us. But we have to relate to it because the Torah is a living document. And every scene, every law speaks to us today, not just to our ancestors thousands of years ago. So how do we relate to sacrifices? To begin, we have to realize that the English word sacrifice is a terrible translation for the Hebrew word carbon. Sacrifice implies that we're giving something to God and that we're losing something. But the truth is that God doesn't need anything from us, and we're not losing, we're gaining. It's addition by subtraction. We're giving up our animal sides.
I am not an animal! I am a human being!
We're sanctifying our desires by reminding ourselves not to indulge our animal instincts. And by doing that, we come closer to God. Without that nearness, we're like beasts, wandering around, chasing our bodily desires without realizing our true calling. But instead, when we give up our animal sides and we get close to God, we realize that that is the only path to true, lasting happiness. Not the size of our bank accounts, not the number of friends that we have. When we bring a sacrifice, we can only use an animal that comes from cattle or from a flock, from sheep or from goats. Animals that can, in some sense, coexist with human beings. We can't bring a sacrifice using a wild animal because a wild animal can't represent our personality, not even our animal side, because we know that our animal side can be tamed, can be refined, can be subjugated to serve God. We also can't bring an animal that's ever been involved in bestiality or idolatry or murder, because adultery and idolatry and murder are three cardinal human sins. When we bring a sacrifice, we are sanctifying and repairing our relationships with God and with our fellow man. So we can't use an animal that has that particular type of checkered past as a sacrifice. Our sages tell us that there are three ways nowadays that we can engage in activities that approximate the type of nearness that we used to get from sacrifice, from bringing a carbon. The first is prayer. Animals don't set alarm clocks in the morning to wake them up to head out for shacharis, for the morning prayers. They don't take a break in the middle of their workday to go to a mincha minyan, the afternoon service. And they certainly don't go out at night looking for 9 other men to form a marav minyan, the evening prayer. The second thing we can do is study Torah. When we study Torah, it's counted as if we're bringing sacrifices. And both of those make sense, because when we're praying, we're talking to God. And when we're studying Torah, He's speaking to us. Both of those activities bring us closer to God. They give us that nearness to Him. The third thing we can do is that we can gain atonement through our tables, just as sacrifices used to gain atonement for us. Our tables means when we sit down to eat. When we sit down and we remember to eat like humans, not like animals. Not eating whatever we want, whenever we want to eat it, but making sure it's a kosher animal, slaughtered properly, prepared properly, in a kosher oven, separating meat and milk, and not eating to the full extent of our desires, not eating like animals. And when we sit down and realize that we're eating to recharge so that we can serve God, that brings us closer to Him. And the animal itself that we're eating, we're taking it from the level of the physical and raising it to the level of the spiritual. So the next time you sit down to eat a nice steak, let that be some food for thought.